Keep a fire burning red and a Joshua representing for comes hard here. You know. Big up Kidaki, Buxton massive. Hey Babylon boy, you go on like come son. Red.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money never, money never, money never, money never, money never, money. Now know what you can I be. Money never, money never, money never, money never, money never, money. You can keep your conniving money. When you been up for a bum, you have been tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, you have been tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money never, money never, money, money never, money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor joker, neighbor joker, neighbor joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said money never, money never, money, money never, money, money. I don't want you can I be money. Oh Joseph.
Guyana and Guyanese, at home and abroad. Tune in the Guyanese Morning Time, hosted by Kadaki Amsterdam, where the sun always shines. Guyanese Morning Time, the people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. We rise up early morning watching Tom's TV, where wisdom and knowledge, yes, it is the key. Exposing corruption over land and sea, where the wicked politicians they try to trick me. Guyana is a land for everybody. With 6 races should live in harmony. Is one set of people getting oil money. Is one set of people doing the thievery. Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. This is a program that you all can see. Sharing your views and your integrity. Like it, comment and share it all around. Pass it to your neighbor, safe and sound. A sad situation going on in this town. The voice of the people is getting trampled down. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, which as ordained me to sing. I sing Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, fooling the people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. Stop fooling people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. I say Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. We got Breakford, Bork and Mark Benchcop. David Hines and Kadaki Amsterdam. Sherrod Duncan, Nigel London. Normal Brown and Gavin Matthews. Big up Paslow, Port People Governor. Simona Brooms, Robin Simpson. Hampton Green and Winston Jordan. And yes, we can go right on and on. Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again.
The relatives and friends of young Wyndham Bacchus, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of our in Boston, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of Peter Headley, they deserve justice. And so when we say that Guyana is an apartheid state, we have the evidence to show.
It's karaoke and oldies night this and every Thursday with Al Christie and popular DJs at Club Twilight Sideline down Buxton North.
Here, trust me, if you are on the East Coast, you're in Buxton, you're in town, you're looking for a place to get away to, this is the place. The Cutters, mwah. And then of course the ambience is beautiful, fully air conditioned, the decor is on point, the music's on point, everything's on point. So if you want to find a nice little place where you can just drive out of town and have some drinks, have some food, you can call, you can order your stuff and just take it. You don't have to stay. Or if you want to stay here, that's what's up. And of course, they have special events for Valentine's. You can rent a hall. You can rent a hall, honey. You can rent a hall for weddings, for birthday parties, to have a bash. I hope he edits that out. But you know, whatever it is, this is definitely the place to be. So it's on Sideline Dam. You definitely want to ensure that you check this place out. But it's on your to-do list. All right, on your to-do list. This is definitely the place to check out, you know, a really cool, chill spot here in Buxton. I like this. This is, Buxton needed this. We needed this. I needed this. You definitely need it too.
Are you planning your next visit to Oil Ridge, Guyana, South America? Well, let's accommodate you at Varon's Cheerful Country Manor. With free secured on-premises parking, our beautiful vacation air-conditioned home offers 3 beds, 2 bathrooms, a spacious kitchen, and all modern amenities. Located at Tushen, on the eastern bank of the mighty Essequibo and the western coast of Demerara, Varon's Cheerful Country Manor is just a stone throw from the ocean. Make that reservation now on Airbnb and VRBO. For contact, call us on 516-770-3053 or 592-685-3521. Make Varon's Cheerful Country Manor your home away from home.
All right, so you might be wondering where we are, still in Buxton at Club Twilight. That's where we are. So Club Twilight also has like an Airbnb as well. So you could come, drink, drunk, and come in the back here and lie down. Look at that. Look at that. Perfection. And the people come in the room and so on. The bed sheet matching, the blind matching, the carpet matching, the this matching, the that. We know but we things in Buxton don't play with we. So definitely if you want to come and, you know, you may be having a wedding or whatever and you just want to overnight and just have a good time because you're going to be drunk. We got too much road accidents. So you definitely want to come, drink, have a good time. They have several rooms that you can rent. You have your toilet, you have your bath, you have your sink, you have your dining area, you have the bed. This is nice. I like it. Anyways, to my friends and my family, if you're looking for me, I'll be overnighting. So for those persons who are traveling in from overseas, you want a nice, cozy place out of town, then Club Twilight, call them up, look them up on social media. They have their own Facebook page, and ensure that you come up the side and have a good time. Have a good time. Have a good time. Sorry, I'm sorry. That's it.
Don't be a victim. Beat the heat with EC crystals. Party ice in large and small quantities. Call 682-7981 or visit us at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. EC crystals, pure party ice. Stop running around like headless chicken. Go to Ashton's Marketplace for whole and cut chicken, beef, pork, processed meats like bacon, beef franks, smoked ham, ground pork, calabresa, and lots more. Ashton's offers wholesale and retail. Check them out. Call 613-2332 or WhatsApp 434-327-3955. Ashton's Marketplace at 72 Rob Street, Border.
All right, so today we are here at Club Twilight up in Buxton, and we are here to talk about all that's going on up here. Trust me, if you are on the East Coast, you're in Buxton, you're in Tongue, you're looking for a place to get away to, this is the place. The Cutters, mwah. Listen, I'll be having some just now again. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, the ambience is beautiful, fully air conditioned. The decor is on point. The music's on point. Everything's on point. It's just me. I need some work. But everything else that belongs to this club here is on point. So if you want to find a nice little place where you can just drive out of town and have some drinks, have some food, you can call, you can order your stuff and just take it. You don't have to stay. Or if you want to stay here, that's what's up. And of course, they have special events for Valentine's. You can rent a hall. You can rent a hall, honey. You can rent a hall for weddings, for birthday parties, to have a bash. I hope he edits that out. But you know, whatever it is, this is definitely the place to be. So it's on Sideline Dam. You definitely want to ensure that you check this place out. But it's on your to-do list. All right, on your to-do list. This is definitely the place to check out, you know, a really cool, chill spot here in Buxton. I like this. This is, Buxton needed this. We needed this. I needed this. You definitely needed too. Thank you.
Comes out your son. You burn this wine when I want you shine. The tree of life, them I want you climb, cause them heart no kind. Comes, I say them heart no kind. Buxton Massive. Kidaki, Red Hat.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop, located in the East Rheinveld Market Meat Section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more.
Went to a dance a Clarendon, me and a big fat thing named Palm.
Club Twilight presents Sunday 26th January, the big people after lunch and oldies bacchanal. Yes, at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Music by Supercat One Man Band, Camps Audio, Disco Baby, and popular DJs. Check it out. It's the big people after lunch oldies bacchanal at Club Twilight, Sunday 26th January. It's gonna be a back in time movie.
I hope this song would have gone away, but it seems to just be coming back and coming back again. It's a song I call 1990. So from the ghettos of Trinidad to the ghettos of LA, same story. Nuclear warhead, do I see it torn down? And there's an army in retreat. I see the old colonials of Europe now become united. And that word, perestroika, it fills the streets. I see the eagle sitting on the shoulder of the bear. Or maybe it's the other way around. Is this the calm before the hellfire? Or is our tomorrow really heaven bound? But 1990, the blood still flows in Bogota. And from Beirut to Johannesburg, the river don't stop. 1990, third world children still wander in their boats, in their jungles, in their deserts, until they dry. It is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange. Everything just seems the same as we move into the next century. 1990, please make a liar of me. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 yeah, there is a black man on the run through a lonely Beijing street. There he goes. My God, he's running again. This time through Brooklyn, Howard Beach. And there he runs again through the streets of Soweto and Bensonhurst. And I'm saying, Lord, so the story goes. And the ghostly man from the past, they call him Selma, Alabama. He just shrugs and says, deja vu, I suppose. 1990. Will our children stand firm? Or will they keep a running and the running and the running till the end of time? 1990. Will hands of love ever reach out? Or will they be there just to strengthen the crime? It is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange. Everything just seems the same as we move into the next century. 1990, please make a liar of me. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, oh, oh. LA's burning down. It reminds me of Harlem and what's in the 60s. Same problem, same country, and king. King is still the name. People shouting power, power to we the people, and equal rights and justice is still the game. I remember over 25 years ago, America stood up and said, this won't happen no more. Now you tell me, what have we become? Will the beast always defeat the beauty? Is this land just another house of the rising sun? 1990, will we see a tomorrow where our children will truly be free? 1990, is it joy, is it sorrow? As we move into the 21st century, I'm saying it is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange, everything stays the same as we move into the next century. 1990. Make a believer. Oh. Now you tell me, what have we become? Will the beast always defeat the beauty? Is this land just another house of the rising sun? 1990, will we see a tomorrow where our children will truly be free? 1990, is it joy, is it sorrow? As we move into the 21st century, I'm saying it is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange, everything stays the same as we move into the next century. 1990, make a believer of me.
David Michael Rudder, 1990. One of the classics. 1990. A calypso that was written at the end of the Cold War. And David Rudder asking what would change for countries of the third world, what would change for Black people and brown people and poor people. And he says, the more things rearrange, everything remains the same for some people in the world, some countries in the world. He's asking, make a liar of me. Almost 40 years later, I think Rudder's thesis is still correct. Whether it's the shoulder on whether it's the bear on the shoulder of the beast or the other way around, everything remains the same. Good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. I think we're having some problems with Facebook tonight. Those of you who are on, please share the link. I don't think we're getting any feed from Politics 101 and Camps TV seem to be having some problems this evening. So those of you who are on, please share the link. I would like to welcome you wherever you are joining us from, whether you are joining us from the United States of America, or you're joining us from Canada, or you're joining us from the wider Caribbean. Welcome to Politics 101. Those of you who are joining us from California, David Rudder made the reference in that calypso, LA is born in. He was talking about the Rodney King incident way back in the 1990s. Parts of California are born in, not from protests, but of course, wildfire, the challenges of global warming, remain. Good evening to all of you. You're joining us from in Guyana. Welcome to Politics 101. It's a Thursday evening, and we continue to face the challenges head on. We're especially asking you this evening to please share the link. Please do, because some of our destinations are affected this evening, it seems, on Facebook. Please share the link and let them know that we're on. Welcome to Politics 101. Last evening we had a very frank discussion about the election, the upcoming election, and what we can expect. And we made the argument last evening that If we continue down the path that we are going, where GCOM does not deal with the concerns of the opposition as they relate to the voters list, as they relate to the use of biometrics, as they relate to the general conduct of the election, that we could be heading into a period of serious political instability. That was the gist of our argument last night. Well, today it seems as though we have company. We have company. We are not the only ones who are concerned about instability if we do not put in place the mechanisms for a proper election. We are not the only one. We are not the only ones who are concerned. Take a listen.
Yesterday, I had an engagement as General Secretary of the PPP with the Private Sector Commission and its affiliates. They wanted to speak about the upcoming elections and they wanted the party's perspective on some of the issues in the public domain. It was a good meeting, and I commend the Private Sector Commission and its membership for being so interested in the transparency for the upcoming elections. They expressed concerns about instability and how instability could affect their well-being and the people who work with them. And I've pointed out that they have no, or they should have no concern about the PPP stoking any instability or any violence surrounding the elections. We have a track record that will show that in our entire history that we have always supported free and fair elections, and we've been a calming influence on people, even in periods when they've been tested and their patience tried, that we've always stood for peace, stability, respect for the dignity of our people, and we have fought against.
There you have it there, Mr. Jagdale, reporting that he met with the public sector, the Private Sector Commission yesterday. And they are concerned about instability surrounding the upcoming elections. Just as we were yesterday expressing our concern here about potential instability. Now, the private sector is no friend of the opposition. We know that Private Sector Commission is a friend of the PPP. But they met with the General Secretary and Vice President to express their concern I am assuming that they will meet with the opposition at some point. But they are concerned about possible instability surrounding the election. And those concerns, of course, arise from two different standpoints. One, that we have had a history of instability surrounding elections, going way back to 1961, coming right through to 2020. Because elections are about winner take all. The winner wins everything, the loser loses everything. And because our voting patterns are along ethnic lines, the winner is always one ethnic party or the other. And contrary to what Jack Dio is saying about the PPP not engaging in violence, I think Jack Dio was born in 1964, but he's not a slouch. He's not a dunce, he can read. And I think one party called the People's Progressive Party was very active in violence surrounding the 1964 election. After the change in the voting system from first past the post to proportional representation, Dr. Jagan and the PPP literally let loose their people. Let loose violence in the society. 1964. The PPP was the aggressor. I said last night that I hold to the GUYANESE thesis that the PPP and their supporters were the aggressors in 61 and 64 and 62, 63. The aggressors were the PNC and the UF. In 1964, the PPP reigned terror on Guyana. My own village, which had not gotten involved in the racial conflict, got involved in 1964 after two elderly persons, the Series, were killed at the back dam. Later, it was found out that PPP supporters were responsible for those killings. And Buxton got involved, and then you had the domino effect to Linden and other parts of the country. The PPP were the aggressors. Jack Dio was born in 1964, but he's not a dunce. So he must know that when he says about the PPP not being involved in violence, that he's talking nonsense. There's been no guilty race or no guilty party, because all parties and all races were involved. The United Force was involved in the violence in Georgetown in 1962 and 1963. All the parties at the time. And as recent as 2020, we saw violence at Lusignan by the PPP supporters. Bad Settlement, Bushlat. Jack Dio was a big tone man in 2020. So you can't say he wasn't born. The PPP has not been involved in violence. I wonder when he tell his supporters to chase Granger and them if they come into the Indian communities. I wonder that was what? But the story here is that the 2025 elections there is a distinct possibility of ethnic and political instability if GCOM does not get it right. If there are no biometrics and there's not a credible voters list, and we have a chairperson who automatically votes with the PPP, then those are not the conditions for free and fair elections. And the opposition may decide to go into those elections without those guarantees. But that will not be a guarantee that we are not going to have instability. The private sector recognizes that. If they can recognize that. See, they're thinking about their businesses and how their businesses can be affected. And we can understand that. And they met with the government, and Jack Dio's assurance to them is that there's going to be no instability because the PPP doesn't engage in violence. And that the state forces, meaning the police, the army, etc., the PPP is depending on them to deal with any instability. Jack Dio, is not assuring the private sector that, look, we are glad you all have brought your concerns to us. We are going to work with the opposition and with GCOM to ensure that we take care of all the possible causes, all the possible causes, all the potential causes of instability. Any government that is concerned about a country and that is concerned about warnings that you are going down, look, we will work with the stakeholders, we'll work with GCOM, we will work with the opposition. We want to work with the private sector to ensure that all the possible causes are taken care of. That is what a responsible party and government would say. But Jack Dio is not saying that. He's threatening that should there be instability, he will use the power of the state. So in the face of potential instability, the PPP is not prepared to deal with the causes of the instability. They're not prepared to deal with that. They're telling the country, we will do nothing about the concerns of the opposition. And if there is any instability, we are depending on the state, maybe to gun down and shoot down people. And this is the government you're dealing with. Mr. Jack Dio went on today to give all the reasons why you cannot clean the voters list. All the reasons why. Has not said that, look, the bloated voters list is as a result of the way in which we put together our voters list. And that's a big concern. A bloated list is a big concern. And we are prepared to do everything in our power to ensure that we do something about it. There's a lawmaking body. The National Assembly is the lawmaking body. If the laws of Guyana stand in the way of a proper, credible voters list, then the lawmaking body takes care of that. The court has said you cannot just take off people from the list willy-nilly. But the court has not said that you cannot have a credible list. It is for the National Assembly. The Parliament, which is the National Assembly plus the President. It is for them to take care of the problems. It is not impossible, but the PPP would have none of it. As for biometrics, the argument is that we already have biometrics fingerprint. When you went to register, you give your fingerprint. Yet with all these biometrics that they're talking about, that is there, people who were not supposed to vote, who were not in the country, voted in 2020. Even the local government election, we saw instances of that. So clearly, the fingerprint that people took when they registered, whenever they did, is inadequate. The PPP would have none of it. Sisters and brothers, it is clear that the PPP intends to rig the election at all costs and intends to use force to get its way. Jack Dios made that clear. I made it clear today at his press conference. So this struggle is a big struggle. And we cannot let up on it. The plan of the PPP is clear. Win the election at all costs. And if there is any challenge, meet the challenge with the full force of the state. We cannot say that we have not heard it. The private sector is concerned, understandably so. The opposition is concerned, understandably so. The citizens of the country are concerned, understandably so. But the government is not concerned. They already have a plan. And the plan is to rig the hell out of the election. And if there's any challenge to it, to beat the hell out of citizens using the armed forces and maybe other paramilitary forces that the PPP may have. You notice they are not regularizing the Chief Justice and the Chancellor. They've already said the Court of Appeal rules against them. They can't say the same about the Chief Justice. She has ruled in their favor perhaps more time than in the favor of the opposition. Yet, they're not regularizing her. The PPP does not want to go into another election, knowing that the elections will be challenged in the court as they did in 2020. 2020, a precedent was set. Elections complaints are no longer going to be decided by a petition. Election complaints are going to be decided by GCOM in conjunction with the courts. And they do not want two black women heading those two courts, those two levels of the court. Although Roxanne George has voted has ruled in their favor many times, I would say more times than the opposition. She's a black woman. And they do not trust black people in positions of power. They do not want a high court and an appeal court that's headed by two black women going into these elections. The PPP has worked out its plan. And what they get angry is that we are exposing their plans every day. We are in for interesting times. Interesting times. Good evening to all of you who've joined us. I notice some of you have found other ways to get onto the program. Camps TV and Politics 101 on Facebook are down tonight for whatever reason. Please share the link, those of you who are on, so that others will know that we're on. We're not stopping what we're doing. So we had this interesting, if we can move from the election for a bit. So the court ruled that Quindon Bacchus's family should be paid $24 million by the state as damages. The state, through the Attorney General's office, said that they would appeal the matter. They were not appealing, they say, that the state has responsibility. They accept that the state has responsibility. What they were, and I can say were now, appealing, was the amount of money that was being paid to the family of Quindon Bacchus. They felt that the judge in the case went further than he was supposed to go. And they appealed. And we are learning today that the president instructed the Attorney General to withdraw the appeal. I have not seen the president reasoning for it. Jack Dio did not give the president reasoning. He said he agrees with the president. So here we have the Attorney General appealing compensation for killing. The state has already taken responsibility. But $24 million is too much to give to a poor black family for the loss of their child. Millions of dollars are being given to PPP friends as contracts. They're doing bad work, late work. No big deal. But the police killed a young man accept the responsibility for the killing of this young man. But $24 million is too much. No, we know $24 million is not a lot of money by Guyana standards. You cannot put a money value to life. And so you don't want to err on the small side. Those of us who remember the Linden gunning down, where again the state paid compensation. But what was the compensation? I think $5 million or something, nothing more than that. And that was 2012, 12 years ago. Today they want to do the same thing. And so they were about to appeal. And the president stepped in and said not to appeal, use his executive authority. Now, the president may want to take a tap on the shoulder for this, but I can guarantee you that when the decision was made to appeal, Nandalal did not make that decision on his own. The Solicitor General did not make that decision on its own. No Solicitor General, no Attorney General is going to make a decision of that magnitude without the agreement of the president and the vice president. And so Jack Dio and Orphan were part of that original decision. But clearly, they're living in the same country that we are living in. And they are seeing the reaction of people. And they know that the road they're taking us down is a dangerous road. And so they have either been advised or they advise themselves, don't fight those people for $24 million. So, you know, they want to suck cane and blow whistle at the same time. Terence Campbell said Jack Dio liked to have his cake and eat it too. Same thing. They want to give the impression that the president is such a wonderful chap. You know, he's overruling his attorney general. He's overruling himself, which is not new. Remember the story with the cash grant? $200,000 per household. By the time bird wife wake the next morning, it come down to $100,000 per person because people were going to Jack Dio Gate. But apparently somebody went to Jack Dio Gate again to tell him, don't appeal the granting of $24 million as compensation for the state killing a young man, a young black man. $24 million is not enough for a life. But $24 million is more than $5 million or $1 million. And it's really a way of the state and government taking responsibility for the actions of the coercive arm of the state, in this case, the police. When things like these happen, sisters and brothers, we have to take credit. Because I'm telling you, if we were not around, if we were not active, this government would have gone ahead and appealed that $24 million.
But they know the consequences. They know what the potential consequences of what they're doing. They know that. Sometimes it's not what you make a government do. It is also what you prevent the government from doing. And one of the criticisms of the opposition, justified too, is that we have not been aggressive in preventing this government from doing certain things. And I think as a collective opposition, we have to take responsibility for that. Deterrence. Deterrence is as effective as actually getting a government not to act in a certain way. Nothing like the PPP would have pulled back an appeal in a matter like this if they were not going to pay a price for it. And we know that the price that they are going to pay is not in votes. The PPP will not lose a vote, a single vote. They will not lose a single vote if they appealed this case. So they're not concerned about losing votes. What they're concerned about, without saying it, is how it go look, and then what would be the response of the African Guyanese community. I have made it very clear, extremely clear, for me as an individual and for the party that I belong to, the question of ethnic violence is a very serious question. We must do everything in our power as a country, as a government, as an opposition, as a political elite to prevent violence. Everything we must do. Because violence, especially ethnic violence, it has a way of multiplying. And sometimes there's no end to it. Just look at what's happening in the Middle East right now. They're in Gaza. We do not want that for our country. And so we are very clear that we must do everything to remove the factors that are going to play into ethnic violence. However, we are not going to sit idly by and say to a group of people who are coming under the ethnic, the economic hammer, the political hammer of the government every day. We are not going to sit down and tell people they must take it. We have to be fair to people. We do not want violence. And ultimately, the violence comes from the state, the government, because they have the monopoly on violence in the society. And we have a responsibility to appeal to people not to fall into the trap of getting engaged in activities which the government can then use and say, look, you all started. You know, they did it with the same Quindon Backer story. People marched peacefully from Golden Grove. They didn't interfere with nobody. They passed all kind of Indian villages. They didn't touch not one soul. And then the police stopped the march at Monrepo, where a critical mass of Indians are there at the market. And we know what happened after then. If those people are intent on beating Indian people, they pass Annidale market, they pass this market, they pass that market. They didn't touch a soul. But then they were stopped. Not at BV. It's the BV police. But they didn't wait until they meet BV police station and stop the march there. They stopped the march at Monrepo Market. The old thing about fomenting violence and then blaming it on the victims themselves. The victims of violence were the people of Golden Grove. We saw what the police did. I went into that village. I saw bullet holes in a church. In a church. Where they went into the church where people were meeting and shoot up. All those people, little stalls at the market at Golden Grove Public Road. Up to this day, they have not been compensated. We know what the PPP plan is. Foment the violence and then blame it on protesters. And we cannot walk into that trap. We cannot send our people into that trap. It would be foolish on our part to do that. To knowingly send our people into a trap that is set for them. But, there is a but. We have a responsibility to those people, our supporters, to say that you all have absolutely no right to sit down and take blows from a government and don't fight back. So we have a responsibility to tell our people to fight back. Two responsibilities. We have a responsibility to work to prevent violence in the society. Not to walk our people into a trap, a violent trap that is set by the government. I was on the bridge in Linden in 2012. I was there. And Mr. Hickins, who is now the commissioner, came to Aubrey Norton and myself and pleaded with us to tell the people to get off the bridge. Aubrey's immediate response was that he did not put the people on the bridge. I concurred, and we are not the people to be speaking to. They should go and speak to the people on the bridge. They never did. They waited until the sun went down and darkness came, and they murdered people on that bridge. They didn't go and talk to the people. They came to talk to me and Norton. Norton and me didn't put the people there. Go and talk to the people. They didn't. They gunned those people down. Since then, we've seen gun down the boy in Dartmouth, Boston, gun down Peter Headley, gun down Quindon Bacchus, beat up on women, spit up on women, put their knee on women's chest. We cannot look at the government doing that and tell our people, turn the next cheek, turn the other cheek. No, fight back. You cannot, as human beings, take that kind of blows. Orrin Boston was in bed with his wife. The government has not told us to this day what was Orrin Boston's crime. So the police can said they were firing back at Boston, who fired at them. Never happened. The police cannot said they were firing back at Quindon Bacchus for shooting at them. Never happened. It means that the police, men who were involved, used unnecessary force. And we cannot say to our people, take bullets all the time and don't fight back. Clearly, this business of violence in our society is the responsibility of all of us as political leaders. If the private sector went to the president, the vice president, and said, we are concerned that this election is going to become a flashpoint for violence, and the government response is not to tell them we are prepared to work with all the stakeholders to prevent what you are forecasting. But they're going to say to them, the PPP doesn't engage in violence, and we are prepared to use the state. You've already turned your guns on half the nation. You've already turned your guns on half the nation. You're looking for a gun solution to a political problem. We don't have to have gunfight to get a proper voters list. The National Assembly can pass a law overriding the present law, or make separate legislation to ensure that we have a clean voters list without taking people off the list of registrants. That can be done. You don't need gunplay to make that happen. Faced with the evidence of voter impersonation in 2020, you are saying that fingerprints that you took 10 years ago can solve that problem. Well, where were the fingerprints in 2020? You're saying you can't use biometrics because Claudette Singh ruled, in the Esther Pereira case, that electronics and biometrics are unconstitutional. Again, the lawmaking body is Parliament. You go there and fix it, pass a law. If people are telling you, your friends in the private sector are saying to you, you're playing with trouble, and instead of using the institutions to thwart possible trouble, you're threatening to use guns. In the face of that, I cannot say to the victims, the potential victims, you all sit down and allow them to shoot at you down. Our responsibility, certainly I take the responsibility of ensuring that violence does not erupt in our society. I have a responsibility, like other leaders, to prevent that from happening. But I also have a responsibility, like other leaders, to say to our supporters, do not sit down and take blows, and don't fight back. We've been taking blows for 5 years. We haven't broken up the country. The political leaders on the opposition side are taking blows. because we have asked people to exercise caution. So nobody can say that we're a violent opposition. But as Mahatma Gandhi said, Mahatma Gandhi, the prince of nonviolence, once said, if I had a choice between cowardice and violence, I will choose violence. Cowardice is not an option. It's not an option. I hope we don't have to make a choice between cowardice and violence. I hope we are not pushed to make that choice. It's a terrible choice to have to make. As a human being, you cannot subject yourself to becoming cowards. It's inhuman, or unhuman, inhuman, or whatever word you all want to use. To resign yourself to being a coward. There's nothing human about that. There's nothing human about knowingly subjecting yourself to engage in violence against your brothers and sisters. It's inhuman, unhuman to do that. And so I hope we don't get to the point where we have to make that choice. Because either way, whether we choose violence or we choose cowardice, they're both social sins. And this government must do everything to avoid pushing the country to have to make that choice. Sisters and brothers, we are not fomenting violence. We are merely warning the government not to push the country to that edge again. We saw what happened in 1992. We saw what happened in 1997. We saw what happened in 2001. The 2006 election was the only election where neither side contested it, the results. We saw what happened in 2015. The government used the police against opposition people, shooting up the former head of the army. We saw what happened after 2020. And if our government feels that the solution to that is to threaten the people with violence, then I think they will be willfully pushing their country to a place that the country ought not to be pushed to. One may ask, why is power so important that people are prepared to go to those lengths to hold on to it? Well, money, the ability to get people to do what you would not want them to do, but that they would not want to do, to get them to do things that they do not want to do. Power is seductive.
Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Are you morning? Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. How you been? How was your yesterday? Was your last night? Well, we addressed the issue. Which side of the bed you get off from? Most of you could only, or most of us, let me be self-inclusive, most of us could only get off one side of the bed. How was your yesterday? I know, yeah, I dropped your shot yesterday, but I'm sure you understand why. I had to be in court yesterday. And court, I went. I did go to court yesterday. The matter was called. The prosecution presented 5 witnesses, 2 of them from the Ethnic Relations Commission, Shemuel Fanfair and Omar Farouk, I think the guy's name is, or some Farouk. Shemuel is responsible for the media monitoring unit at the ERC or something to that extent. And Farouk is the chief responsible for investigation at the ERC. I can't tell you out too much more. Remember, the case is still in court. But they presented 5 witnesses. On the 11th of March, I am required to return to court. And when I return to court on the 11th, they're expected to present 2 more witnesses and recall 2 just for my understanding, identifying exhibits and so on. Right? So my guess is that the prosecution's case is likely to close on the 11th of March. What happens after then will be dependent on, of course, my counsel, Nigel Hughes and team, and the magistrate will determine whether or not the prosecution made a case. Right, so that's it as far as I know, as far as I think. That's all I can tell you. Thanks to those people who called to check in on my well-being and to find out how things went and so on and so forth. You know, I always come here and report to you. But some people gotta get it, have to have the real, right? Good. So yeah, that is how it is. In the meantime, we will continue doing our programming. We will continue doing what we ought to do. I did promise, because Mr. Jordan couldn't be on yesterday because of my court appointment, I had an agreement with him that he's going to come on today. After today, I'm bringing on Mr. Jordan any other Friday. Last week was the same thing because I forgot when was Thursday. Good. Do share the live. Tell a friend, call a friend, tell them that we're on. I deliberately replayed Dr. Hines' program. I'm sure some of you might have seen it last night, but there are many of us who didn't have the chance to look at it. And I know some important details inside here. So I decided to share it with you this morning. Somebody's calling the phone. I don't know. Hi. Could you send me a message? GCIS, I think. Yes. Yeah. Good. So, Dr. Hines' program of last night and even the night before, I would recommend that you share it around, especially encourage people to look at it. You know, people who forget their history are doomed to make more serious mistakes than they made before, quite frankly. Everybody is sending me a video of James Bond, what's the word? Endorsing the fat guy for a second term. I don't know why y'all sending me the video and y'all crying tears. James Bond is an individual. James Bond has his right to endorse who he wants to endorse. And all those people, Melanie surrounding Ali and shouting second term and so on, they have a right to endorse who they want to endorse. It is for us to do what we have to do, what we need to do. I'd rather know who the enemy is. I'd rather know who the enemy is, because if I know who the enemy is, I can, forewarn this forearmed, I can necessarily put systems in place to avoid being deceived by the enemy. And so you all should thank James Bond for coming out and say, well, he believes that Ali deserves a second term. In short, he believes that black people should be treated the way they're being treated. Right? And I don't know why y'all surprised again. I'm a very practical person. I believe in my education. Is it true that James Bond is not well, let's say once a guy owns a black blood, but James Bond is really African guy. James Bond is one of them mix up people. I don't know. Y'all tell me, because For me, people who got certain allegiances, you could understand where the allegiances come from. Apart from self-serving, right? Many of us are self-serving because we recognize if we lie down with you, we're going to get what we want. In short, we behave like y'all don't. I'm sorry for using this word, but it's one of the oldest profession, and I can use the word because it's a part of the what is it? English. What we call it? Is it lexicon? Some of us behave like whore, right? I had a friend who was involved in the business of prostitution, and she said, "Hey, depending on how much money the client is paying, I could handle." Okay. The the loudness of my emotions is dependent, right? The loudness of my emotion is dependent on how much the client is paying. And so I don't know why y'all get up all in y'all feelings and y'all hear people hollering. They don't necessarily all out of love, you know. They're all out of self-love. They gotta serve themselves. Good. Friends will tell you that from where they stand, business is not so bright in this country. And if business is not bright in the country, I operate Club Twilight here. I can tell you about the club taking a beating. We ain't making no money. We are the same patrons and so on. One would believe that the opposition people would come down and support the club and so on because they know what happens and thing. And so our friend has a club older than Camps TV, older than Club Twilight. And things were booming at one point in time, and then whoops, like something kick out the bottom. And the bottom get kicked out. And once the bottom get kicked out, things get tight. Now, would you rather me keep my mouth shut and suffer the economic hardships I'm faced with as a entrepreneur, as a private business person, or you rather me open my mouth and sing two songs and get what I want? Yeah, I gotta work out these things, you know. You can't get your pie and eat it. That's why y'all stop sending me video and complain about James Bond and this body and that body and that. A man is an individual. We live in a democracy. We got the right to declare our allegiance to who we want to declare our allegiance to, regardless of who it affects. Who begs drink Marvex? I don't care. You recognize that's the nature of our society? We are about individualism. I don't care. I don't care. It's about me. Once I get a bread, I don't care if you get crumbs. I don't care if you got soft wind. If white squad got kick up in your belly, I have no problem with that. They all stop sending me things. At one point in time, you all used to accuse the man of being Azudin's umbrella boy. And he was pledging allegiance to Azudin and so on and so on. Mohammed, I'm talking about. And yeah, of course, we are what the man do really. The man got to survive. I can survive to by not any means necessary, by few means. I'll do what I need to do to survive. Right, so that was that for that's something else I wanted to raise with you this morning, but I ain't gonna fight up with her. I'm gonna play this song for y'all, and then this is Rash Shiloh. He said if you can't hear, you're gonna feel. And if you only want to hear, because 4 years plus approximately I've been talking to you, Dr. Hines has been talking to you, a lot of other people have been talking to you. And if you can't hear, then let's try.
Are you worried that using your home address for business?
All right, with you. We'll ask you something. Not always in the people business, so stay out, no?
Who can hear will feel and see that joy is real. Dreams of a poor man's sleep are of getting riches one day. Other money man piles in the heap, thinking wealth can make them say. Bear in mind these times, even blind needs no eyes to see that the gift of child depends on love and liberty is real.
That he will feel and see that Jah is real. That he will feel Jah plays no hide and seek. That he will feel, you see. The double when in trouble, without hesitation, you cry and call on Jah name. Yet when he helps you from your wrongs, you still won't refrain. Why are you hard of hearing Jah words cannot go in vain? Hearken to the voice of his calling and make sure that you are saved. That he will feel and see that Jah is real. That he will feel Jah plays no hide and seek. That he will feel, you see. Ravaged and terrorized, intimidating, victimized. Objects are scattering fear and dread. But what man proposes, I know Jah disposing to his powers. We are like insects. No disrespect, but it's the truth which no man can dispute. Every knee shall bow and tongues confess of King David's rule. That he will feel and see that Jah is real. That he will feel Jah plays no hide and seek. That he will feel, you see. Dreams of a poor man's sleep are of getting riches one day. While the money man falls in the heap, thinking wealth can make them say. Bear in mind these times, even blind needs no eyes to see. That the gift of Jah depends on love and liberty. It's real. That he will feel and see that Jah is real. That he will feel Jah plays no hide and seek. That he will feel, you see. Who can't hear will feel. You see that Jah is real. Yeah. On the double when in trouble, without hesitation, you cry and call on Jah name. Yet when he helps you from your wrongs, you still won't refrain. Why are you hard of hearing Jah words cannot go in vain? Okay.
Who can hear them feel? And if you can't hear them, who got to feel, got to feel. You know what they say, the best learning is when you pay to learn. At least that's what old people say. And people believe when they talk about paying to learn is money-wise. It's not always money-wise. You pay with your freedom. You pay with your blood. You pay with your sweat. You pay with your tears. You pay with constant pain. Yesterday, I usually take about 3-4 days to watch one movie because y'all know why. I'm always busy. But somewhere in the middle, in some part of the day, I will try to, catch a little break here and watch a 5 minutes or 10 minutes of a movie. But it takes me about 3 or 4 days to look at a full-length movie. I won't believe it. Yesterday, I was looking at a movie called Answered with Fire. In fact, I ain't finished looking at it yet. About the story of East Timor. Some of you must go and see it. I mean, it's a dramatic rendering of the struggles that they went through there to get independence and secession and all of that. But was answered with fire, I think, or answered by fire. I must check it out. You cannot see the writings on the wall and behave as if you're deaf, blind, or simply stupid. Dumb, some people say. If you see the writings on the wall, especially in daytime, and then you wait at nighttime to look at it, look for it with jog lamp, you don't find yourself in problems. I've been saying to you since I was a little boy, y'all watch the PPP. You see, all them security forces, all them security services that they're establishing left, right, and center, they're paramilitary groups of the PPP, the Red Army, in a different form. And when I talk about the Red Army, PPP, people know what I'm talking about. It's not a figment of my imagination. There's a former army general or colonel or brigadier or whatever rank he was that had, and I want to believe continues to have, direct responsibility for the PPP Red Army. It might be disguising itself through these many security services. You see the kinds of weaponry that the security services are carrying? Just not for defend no Chinese shop, I tell you, this is defend the PPP when the PPP decides that they will do bad. Remember in 2020, you had some folks driving around in a motor vehicle singing, we're gonna have a good time all night tonight, I think, and their son, so can't hear they're gonna come out, and you saw the number of guns. Whatever happened to the case under the PPP? The case wash out. Dr. Hines has detailed the history of the PPP and violence when it comes to elections. There's some stories which have not yet been told when it comes to violence in elections. But you see the writing on the wall. There is evidence around the world when dictators come into wealth, as in the oil wealth, what they do to stay in power. They use that wealth against the people. They enrich and fatten some of their friends and cronies to help to keep them in power. The oligarchs. Is Elon Musk about to be an oligarch of Ghana? I want to ask the question. Y'all judge me. I don't know. How is it so convenient after Elon Musk's name and organization has been associated with the Trump victory, and some people say the Trump, the corruption of the US election to make Trump the victor and so on, how it became so important for the government of Ghana to have an interest to talk with Elon Musk about more connectivity in Guyana. How suddenly they're interested in the Guyanese people getting better internet than their private company e-network is providing to the Guyanese people. Fool attack, but fool not listen. And if you want to be foolish, then you're going to face the consequences. The African Guyanese youth man who running around, like in Buxton, for example, and say, hey, boy, we're making a bread, the PPP paying us to clean the area by blocks. Hey, y'all take this square here and give y'all $1.1 million. And it starts work, say, hey, we're going to hurry up and we're going to finish this work in five days, and this $1.1 million, we're going to bust down to at least $100,000. Hey, we're making a bread by $20,000 most I get today. Because in 5 days, I earn 100 grand and plus. What happens after elections? This is where them young African Guyanese guys themselves. I ain't got no problem with people taking their money to do the work. If you get a chance to eat the food, man. Take a break. But hey, ask yourself, what happens in the long run? Old people, again, I like old people wisdom, what sweeter goat mouth does bitter in its backside. And so it's going to go down smooth. It's 100 grand, it's 150 grand, it's 200,000 I left with as a contract, it's 300,000, and it's only a week. I'm thinking, I don't let me advance from them, man. I'm thinking, I can buy some nice Gangzi. I can buy 2 kids Guinness for the car and for the bikes, and we're going to have a good time. What happens after the party? What happens after? Election comes and done. What happens? They think it's every week they're going to give the opportunity to clean a block and get some money. No, not every month either. The PPP believes in the Machiavellian principles, and I believe in them too. First and foremost, make them so needy. that they're dependent on you. Make them so needy that they're dependent on you. And then give them a little bit to sweeten their tongue so they're going to keep coming to you, expecting a little bit more. And so you get them where you want them, in a place of abuse. That's what the PPP doing to y'all. We ain't realized up to now. It's 10 minutes to 8 o'clock. I want to give Mr. Jordan adequate time to talk with us this morning. But let me say this. All the teachers who partook in the registration process of the cash grant, they're getting a glimpse of who the PPP is. They're getting a glimpse of who the PPP is. They're going to man them sure sing. Former teacher at Annandale Secondary. Some people label him a racist. I've never had personal dealings with him, so I can't necessarily call him a racist. But he might be an Indian nationalist from his behavior. So Singh and another house nigga named Boston from Melanie. So y'all checking the call and see if y'all didn't see Boston yesterday. Endorsing Ali. Them man don't know why he had a food contract. He was a man who was providing meals. So when you hear people singing, they're singing with dry mouth. They're singing because the PPP put in something in their mouth. A wet beak, them I used to call it. They get in a wet beak. They stood up. So Singh in particular stood up at Lusignan Center Ground and promised teachers our educators, for this registration that you guys are being asked to do, we are going to pay you like the 10-day workers. 10-day workers get $40,000 minimum a month. Those teachers took Sir Singh's word. This thing a PPP representative, a government representative, but more so a PPP representative. They took his word for it. And they went out there and they worked. They did their utmost, to some people say. Some of them went beyond the call of duty and were for the promise. What should I say? An incentive upon that promise of the 10-day worker pay. Because they're going beyond the call of duty. They ain't cutting off at the time when they're supposed to cut off. They're willing to go out into the field and do registration and so on and so forth. So they were expecting what? A premium to what the 10-day workers were getting based on promises made by Sir Singh and Boston. Boston. They did their work. And they waited for the pay. And when the checks came, the checks were short of the 10-day worker pay. Promises a comfort of fool. I ain't calling the teachers fool. But there's the attitude of the PPP and the representatives. A promise is a comfort of fool. We want y'all to do what we want y'all to do, and we will make promises for y'all to do what we want y'all to do. And when y'all finish doing what we want y'all to do, we have had enough use of y'all, so we all get y'all going to take. If they can treat educators like that, imagine them Dunstock, them Lash Up Head, them Mali and Sugar Banner, Wokenham. So let us continue to be lured. Come into my palace and the spider to the fly. They're going to be lured. Y'all going to continue to be lured because y'all want to eat. Y'all got to eat the bread. Y'all got to eat the food. Eat your food, but stay woke. I was taught that when you chew with your mouth shut. And if not for y'all adopt the principle, y'all ain't going to endorse a soul. Eat what they give you, chew what you got to chew. You ain't gonna endorse nobody because you're providing a service what they're giving you. But some of y'all want roll over and show who could get the best position so you could hold on to what they offer. Too bad. So this morning, I said the teachers who are seeing for the 100th time how deceitful the PPP can be, even through their operatives. So some of them vex. Some of them vex. They tell me we're gonna get more, we're gonna get the 10-day worker pay, which is $40,000, and then they say we work overtime, and so they're gonna give you another top up. So at least they're expecting $50,000. 50, take where you get 30, 35,000. Now let me make the work 10-day worker pay get $40,000. At least in African Guyanese communities, African Guyanese teachers, they ain't get the money. I know what going on in those Guyanese communities. Because of course, you know, we got different standards for different people in this country when we pay them. But y'all don't wise up. Come out and sing the praises of the criminals. And tell yourself that you're singing the praises because you get in with big. And you care with affect others. But watch me. Your next generation coming. Gary was here. Your next generation coming. And when the Indo-Guyanese dominated PPP people, next generation will tell you next generation, two things take for take son, two things make for take son. Black man and zinc shit. Don't be offended. When they choose to spit in the face, don't be offended. Because you are making them new masters. You are making them your new colonial masters. You're making them the new overseers of the plantation. And you're empowering them. And he's a good man, and he always remember me. Nandelal is a good man. Nandelal could always drop a blight for me. Jagio is a good man. I could always start Jagio and get a blight. What you're collecting in all those instances are your shackles for you and your next generation. Can't say tell you. I didn't tell you. Who can hear, they're going to feel. Who cannot hear, they're going to feel. As Paul still like to say, watch this space. Y'all going to see what's going on. Let me call Mr. Jordan so he can tell you all the implications. Where's this, you know? Oh, yeah. Listen, y'all don't aggravate my spirit. Right? Y'all don't aggravate my spirit. Don't show me another one. I don't care who's another one. Right? Y'all left me alone. Let nobody do the thing. Y'all just observe and stay woke. It's good when you could see, you know, because when you see, you could take action. But when you're seeing, you're groping in the dark. You gotta be a professional. Sure. Yeah, you're good and so. Check 1, 2, down. Hey, what y'all doing with Mr. Jordan? Hello? Good.
Everything good there?
I think they're hearing you. If you're listening, you could tell me if you're hearing. But I think y'all hear. Give a thumbs up if you hear Mr. Jordan, because you what me staying here, you know. I left for Mr. Jordan to talk with you. Mr. Jordan.
I hear you well and clear.
Welcome to the program. Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, thank you. How did it go yesterday?
Oh well, it means you didn't tune in from the inception. You can't watch I listen to you, you will listen to me, you know.
Today's Friday, you know. Today's Friday, you know, and I remember it was Thursday.
Yeah, yesterday, the prosecution presented 5 witnesses, 2 from the ERC and 3 from the police. And the case will get called again on the 11th of March. Yeah. When two other witnesses are to be called by the prosecution, and two will be recalled to identify exhibits, I think. And so I'm assuming that they're likely to close the case on that on the 11th, and then, as we say, the ball is then in the defense's court.
Right,
so you can see how that happens.
Well, we all behind you, and we all praying and hoping for that the good Lord will touch the hearts of those who are involved, and that you will score another victory. Right? Victories for our people are rare, but when they come, we have to savor them because they would have been hard fought. Like I said 2 weeks ago or so, nothing has ever been given to us. We have always had to fight tooth and nail to get it.
Some people want to fight. Some people want I can't even say negotiate. Some people want to sell their soul.
Well, yes. But before I get to there, I just want to send out and recognize the death of Monty Marshall, quantity surveyor. I don't know if you know him.
Yes, as a matter of fact, thank you, because he is the former husband, I think, ex-husband, as we like to say, of Hazel Marshall. And I think Hazel Marshall is well known among the African Guyanese community.
Well known among, yes.
So condolences to the Marshall family.
Yes. His son, Zwadi Marshall, is very well known. Went to school with my daughter, who's in Maryland. So, but how I got to know Monty is interesting because I had just completed my master's in England and I packed up to come home. And among the things that I packed were a brand new television and VCR, video cassette recorder, along with a brand new stereo set, those stereo sets that are in the cabinets, and they arrived in Guyana. This is the 84, I think, 84, yes. They arrived in Guyana late 84, I think. And if you know, England, they use 220, 240. So I had to get a step-down transformer to bring it down back to the 110, 120 that we supposedly is generating in this country. But that wasn't the problem. The big problem is that the British used the PAL system, whereas at that time, the only television that we had in town was Various television that was picking up signals from America and so on, I think, and they use NTSC or something like that. And of course, he was scrambling. So unless you got a box that you bought from him and so on, it was useless trying to get anything, or unless you had your own big dish. But I bought the thing, and I bought a couple of tapes, and I set it up and so on. And so the family used to gather around while I showing these tapes, one every month or one every 2 months. Because we don't know where you're going to get another set of television from. Picking up signals from America and so on. And they use in the office of C or something like that. And while they were talking to the engineer, and of course he was scrambling. I took a browse on the box. Went in his library and saw all these tapes. And so on. Nice, good old pictures. And so I asked him, he said, no, those guys who's here, those are PAL. I said, brother, you received them. I got the PAL system. I got the PAL system home and I wrote the tapes. Thus began my borrowing from him tapes and carry back one and borrow one and carry back one. And as I got too steady, he said, hey, you're coming too often, right? Give it some time. Give it some time, right? Which was fine with me because by the time I used up all the tapes and so on, my system, my TV and DCR would have just de-lined on again. But long and short, that's how I got to know him. A nice individual and so on. And all ended well because the TV and the VCR was taken off my hand when an EU delegate was returning home to Ireland. And so he bought both of them at almost the price that I bought them for, because they were in mint condition, of course, not being used.
You were engaging in international trade on the job, right?
Yes, that's right. you know, like how you cover down chairs when Christmas comes around and so on. And so we finished with them. We used to cover down the food. Yeah, that was a nice, interesting story. Yeah, so like you also, sorry, on June this week, I was on one of my business, John's again, took me downtown. And I had to park way down in Main Street because even as it's January and business is very slow, still they have no parking literally in any one of these streets. But I eventually found one and decided to walk in the avenue. And I continue to be amazed at the interactions that I get from the salt of the earth, ordinary people who recognize me and so on, and discussing and so forth. And I went in my way to Foreman Shoe Store that is now in GPO's building, right? Those who know Foreman's used to be in Tiger Bay. And a former lawyer bought out that place. He's now dead. And they had to move, and they moved to the GPO. And so I got a favorite shoe, so I took it there. And again, in GPO, there were a number of elderly folks and so on who approached me. And we had lively discussions and so on. And one, of course, the main thing is the cash grant, right? This business of the cash grant and so on. And I think people have not realized that it's an astonishing announcement by the government, you know, and the whole poor and the paucity of planning and strategy and so on. That you could say that you went for $30.5 billion, estimating to pay 300,000 people. But by the end of the year, you had paid only 90,000. 90,000, the majority of whom would have been public servants. 90,000 out of 300,000. Effectively, then, what happened to the rest of the money? And you did say, of course, that you printed 300,000 checks, but you were only able to distribute 90,000. I find this in many other places, as they say, heads will roll. Indeed, those are the kinds of heads that would have rolled, and not necessarily the public servants here, because they had nothing to me. They had nothing to do with the public servants. The bungling had to do with the politicians, and amazingly, the top politicians. From instantaneous to 5 months to up to all these different things, to the confusion in distribution. And I saw something in today's papers where they're saying, well, it went smoothly in regions 1 and 2. That is not true. Regions 1 and, was it not 2? Regions 1 and I think 9. 8. I think 1 and 8 or something like that they were saying. It went smoothly. 1, 8, and 9. But that's not true. I listened to Laura George on AFC, I think it was last week, when she's saying the same thing. It was not true. But that she said, you know, indigenous people are quieter, they don't make much of a fuss. And she was alluding to the fact that when it comes to Region 4, where they have far larger numbers of people to be distributed to, that they will see. And absolutely correct. Chaotic. 90,000 out of 300,000. And by the way, they've gone silent because last Friday was the last time they claimed that they were distributing to pensioners. And again, we have to be clear and specific. It's not all pensioners they were distributing the money to. They were distributing to NIS pensioners who registered at the NIS site. And even when they did so, significant numbers of the people who registered as NIS pensioners at NIS sites were not able to collect their monies. So now they've gone silent. There apparently is no distribution going on right now. We have to wait on the app, or we have to wait on announcements to find out when distribution will recommence. Meanwhile, we're hearing about registration in the other regions that were not registered. This is the level of chaos. In a simple exercise like this, a simple exercise, it's nothing new, has been done all over the world, has been done even right here, but something that they could not get. And they must tell the people, now that you're holding 210,000 checks, what are they backed by? The money that you went to Parliament for last year? Is that money going to be found in the latest estimates for 2024 that you use? Because it's not true. You also have the money. And if you have the money according to the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act that you didn't disburse, then you have to send it back and rebudget the money in the 2025, along with the new monies that you are going to budget for. But indeed, they've gone silent. Very much I could have tell these people just to tell them to keep the faith, and keep listening out to for when they can go and collect their monies, And there are a number of there are a couple of street people. I usually gap with them as they tour around by gas stores and so on. Those people don't have any documentation beyond. I don't even think they got documentation. Some of them saying what is the name. Some of them we know by call names. Some of them, but some of them fall on hard times, unfortunate circumstances, and so on, and they don't have paperwork. They perhaps have to go right back to the birth certificate stage of people identifying them and so on, based on what knowledge they can tell you. Some of them were dope addicts recovering and all kinds of stories. But they're 18 and over, and no attempt whatsoever is being made to reach those people so that they could get this money. No attempt. And it's not one, it's not two, it's a sizable number of them all over. And I'm just talking about GUYANESE because I usually pass there and I see them there and so on, but they're all over the place. They are the various sea walls, they're the dams, they're in Regent Street, they're the markets, they're all over the place. Nobody is making an attempt to gather these people so that they can collect their money. But you see in today's papers where they say no one will be left out. No one will be left out. Even the street people will be given. How will they be given? They have access to communication. They have access to radio. They have access to television. How will they know? Many of them don't even know that the cash grant is being given out. How will they know? So it's, and then I saw today's papers again, I think it was, where the Ministry of Finance put out some statement. The subject was apparently spoke to some Ministry of Finance official or somebody, in which these litany of excuses were being given as to why they couldn't distribute this money. So look, Ministry of Finance has been my forte for a long time. Most of my career and so on. I don't know who the people are speaking to, but certainly the people who were there when I was there were highly efficient people. I know there have been significant movement in Torstel and so on since I left, but they were highly efficient, highly qualified and so on. But this person today was saying, oh, well, we get caught up in budgeting and end of year statements and preparing the budget. And well, that's a new one, because at no time was it given when Ali was saying instantaneous back in October. One would have thought that all that would have been taken into consideration. One would have thought that would have happened. But the people are saying, well, we got excuses. The reason why we think is, so on. And then they're giving other people bad name. When you look at NIS, for example, NIS people got the most abuse, the staff. But NIS is not involved in cash distribution. They're only facilitating. They're not involved in cash distribution. And it's the general manager there is an extremely nice person, very, very nice person and so on. But if we had the independence of the institution and so on, she should have been in a position of saying, listen, you guys could use the premises, or the board could have said, look, you guys could use the premises, but you can't use our staff. You could use the premises, but bring your staff and you deal with the distribution. You got the check. So it was left the NIS staff to tell people, well, your check's not here. Or to tell them, look, it's not me who got your checks. It's the Ministry of Finance. And these people here are the Ministry of Finance people. But they end up getting the bad name. You listen to people, you listen to the elderly folks and so on. NIS keeping back the money. Not the Ministry of Finance, the NIS. Because they went there and they tell them they can't come in because they give a number system and all these kinds of stories. No. Bad name for nothing. To the NIS staff, I empathize with you. You took bad name for nothing. Really? It's not your fault. Right? It's the Ministry of Finance who responsible for all this. They're the ones who cut in the checks. And they're the one who's responsible for assembling the checks, putting them in some order, and so forth. And they're the one who responsible for sending them out to different sites and locations that have been announced to collect these things. But we're waiting with bated breath. It doesn't seem as if they're going to continue the distribution until after the budget. So hopefully between last week, Friday, and whenever they restart distribution, they would have had enough time to assess where it went wrong and come up with a system that is better, a much improved system than what we have here. And they're talking about another cash grant later on in the year. Well, let us hope that announcement is made. Everything would have been put in place already, because I think if it's as shambolic as this one here, it will be fresher in the minds of people going into an election, right? So that was the cash grant one. And, you know, and like you, I have been a recipient of this James Bond tape at Melanie Damichano that has been circulating and so on. And like you, I listened to it and then I pressed the delete button because, you know, for me, I believe that to each his own. If he were to be given a compliment, it will be for the fact that he's not hiding and wasting time anymore, that he's a PNC through and through, because that is what he used to be saying, that he's the PNC, the diehard PNC and so on. That he has come out and he has shown where his support is and where it will be. Unless he's saying, well, I support you for second year, but I will vote for PNC. Because there are many of that. So don't let us condemn him too early. He might have gone publicly and say, well, I support you for second term. But he didn't say the second part, but I will still vote for PNC. And he tell everybody he's a diehard PNC, you know. And they got a number of people who loved Height. A number of Indian people who came out solidly and told him how he loved him and so on. But when the results came out, it didn't reflect that love at all. Right? It didn't reflect that love. And you could go box by box by box and realize that that love didn't translate into numbers, so to speak. So we shouldn't be cussing off James Bond too early. And to the fact that to each his own. This is election season. It has started early, right? And many greens and yellows will turn reds, will come out openly now as reds. Okay? Many greens and yellows. So, and that is to be expected. I don't know how many reds will go to green and yellow. One doesn't leave food or so on to come, as they say, as they think, to starve, as they putting out there. But and you know, politics and history is replete with hoppers, grasshoppers, jumpers, high jumpers, triple jumpers, you know, and so on. So you're gonna get a lot of those, mostly from green and yellows going to red. But spare thought for those who remain resolute to whichever party they are at the moment. Spare thought for those, you know, since the days of Burnham, when patriotism and diehardness, people would have fought with Burnham, would have gone into a war with Burnham and so on. Those days since Burnham died have gone. You know, Height had his own implosion in the party post-Burnham as he started to recreate the party in his own image, which essentially meant getting rid of the diehards and the old stages and so on of the party and bringing in his own blood. And so he had his own implosion and so on. And Corbyn had his own implosion also. Granger had his own implosion. And Norton is facing the same rebellion at the moment. I don't think any one of those names that I call it was able to manage the situation or manage the fallout those implosions. And so the PNC as a party has been weakened as a result rather than becoming stronger. It has weakened as a result. And it's been put on the back foot, so to speak, always having to look out for people now who may not necessarily, who may, as they say, might be pointing left but going right. So it's unfortunate that a lot of time will have to be devoted to that. But again, like I said, Barn shouldn't be crucified for his stance. Who knows that he may well. I know his mother very well because she went to school with me. She went to my school. So I haven't said that. Who knows? He may just have come out there open. And I said that because there are those who are hiding in plain sight and prominence in front of us. They're there. Some of them more visible than others. Some of them have been given positions as advisors and other posts, right? That literally or effectively new to them from being associated with the cause, you know. So again, as I said, we have to. And as I see today's papers are also Jordan and Nigel London in a big fight. Listen, guys, if you guys are still in the party, my suggestion is devote your energies to building up the party and providing a unity slate for the purpose of going in the elections and ultimately winning it. It makes no sense putting out your dirty business on Facebook and other way about who did more, or who's this and who's that. You're just playing right into the hands of your enemy. And in an election year, how can you appear to be so divided? What is it that you send into your supporters or your constituency about your effectiveness and your ability to govern? And how can you pull down 4 years or how many years that you may have had of work just for the sake of an election year where people are targeting you and you're falling for it? So my thing is, man, look, you know, settle yourself and get down to the business of trying to win. And to those leaders of parties, whether it be David Hines or Nigel Hughes or Harvey Norton, you guys got a big task in front of you, not ahead, in front of you, because your supporters are restless or some of the signals that are being sent don't bode well for parties going into elections, whether individually or in a coalition. And the time is yesterday when we should start getting out the contact cement and trying to glue us together with one common cause. Don't get excited with all these visits and so on. It will happen. They have the money and they have the resources to start very early and so on. But the opposition parties have to show that they have the strategy, even if they don't have the money, to counter those who have the money. Right? There's no way you're going to stop a person who get a contract, you know, that they never got before, or they got a contract at recent time, you know, with no ability, but they got the contract and so on, from singing the praises of whoever gave them the contract. That master day, master story. That happened. Go back to slavery. The house slave felt superior to the field slave because they were given hand-me-downs directly from the master. They were getting scraps from the master's table, whereas the field slave had to work the bones off and so on. So the history is there. But it doesn't mean that there's not a place for the house slave. The house slave is close to the action. And he or she can pick up tidbits that can help with the whole change process that you want to put in place. There's a role for the house slave and there's a role for the field slave. So it's just how we marshal these thoughts. It's just how we make people feel that they're part of the cause. Not because I take a contract from the PPP. It's not the PPP's money. It is not the PPP's money. And I heard talk about chasing them out of your community, I said that is nonsense. That is Jagdio's philosophy. That should never be your philosophy about chasing people out of community. You can't on the one hand say that they're bypassing your community, they're not thinking your community, and when they come to your community, you chase them out. You chase them out. I mean, that makes sense. That's the contradiction in itself. It don't make sense. And we have to stop believing that these people, when they bring money and they give you money, they're doing you a favor. They're not doing you a favor. This is our money. This is your money. This is our money. And in many ways, this is not Ali's money. Ali don't pay income tax. Ali don't pay any kinds of tax as a president. So it's not his money. He hasn't contributed to the treasury. He hasn't contributed to the treasury. It's not his money. It's our money that he is distributing, albeit in a ways that we don't like. But if we end up getting a $10 million contract, I don't feel we need to tell people that they're house slaves, that they're this and they're that. It doesn't mean that, and even if they came out and wear a red jersey and they were singing like a canary, the praises of the PPP, it doesn't mean that when they go in the ballot box, that some of those people feel humiliated in what they have to do, but they're doing it for bread. Others may not do it at all because it is not in their psyche, it is not in their head. But, we should welcome all on board because at the end of the day, it's about votes. It's about votes. And we just can't be, chastising a whole set of people because they get contract and so on. And if you do that, then you lose the vote. And how would that make sense? Comes right back to how can you divide a minority to achieve a majority? Comes right back to that. So I think our strategy and our philosophy has to change, not only in this election year, but especially in this election year. We have to bring all hands on deck. And all are needed. And while I'm saying this, let me send out a word of praise to Amanza for her strong statement that she put out on the Guyana Venezuela controversy and the country tongues of Maduro. This is what we are missing in government. Particularly in the foreign affairs, her caliber, her reasonableness, her structure, and so on. At a time like this, you check and see who we have sent. Well, I keep saying who the government has sent in these critical capitals. You check and see. You have a turnaround specialist who wasn't able to turn around Gaisuko in Brussels that covers the whole European Union. You had he didn't claim to be a turnaround specialist, but he was at another one at Gaisuko who dropped the ball and run a couple days after the coalition government came in May 2015. Now he's High Commissioner in to the Court of St. James in the United Kingdom. Then you had a former president, albeit for 9 months, but perhaps the longest serving prime minister, who is down in the greatest capital in the world, in Washington, D.C., with access to the OAS and so on. All of these people who can be considered to be diplomatic neophytes, because they weren't previously diplomats. They don't have much diplomatic training beyond the little sprinkling couple of weeks that they get just prior to taking up their post. Diplomatic neophytes in critical capitals. The only diplomat of worth in a capital of worth is the one in Ottawa, Ambassador George. There's a young lady in China who's a diplomat of some experience, but in almost all of the critical areas, we have diplomatic neophytes. How are we going to think our case? And then when you look to critical areas like Africa and Asia, in the case of Africa, our only station is South Africa. There we have no resident ambassador after the last one, Kenrick Hunt, was removed under the coalition government. Not removed in the removed sense, but his contract had come to an end and posted home or posted back to his station. There's no ambassador in South Africa. And South Africa is meant to cover all the African nations because we don't have an ambassador to the OAU, the Organization of African Unity. I think they had renamed themselves or something. Right? We don't have any other ambassador to East and West Africa, and so on. Asia. I don't recall any ambassador, any embassy or ambassador or resident ambassador anywhere in Asia. In the Arab states, which is critical, we have abandoned Kuwait. The last ambassador was Dr. Shamir Ali, and we seem to have abandoned Kuwait, and the deputy ambassador there has been moved and posted to, I think, to Qatar. That is our state. That is our state. So who do we have to call on? And this last development, what has been the government's response? Beyond lukewarm, beyond the statement here and the statement there. The government really thinks that it could ginger up the Guyanese population. Every time Venezuela goes saber-rattling, it really believes that it could ginger up, especially in the context of what is going on in the country and what has gone on in the country last 4 years. In a country where half of the population or more feels excluded, feels disenchanted, feels of little worth, feels they're not benefiting from the development, feels they're not benefiting from the oil and other resources. You really think such a population, you can really get unity overnight because it named Venezuela? Controversy? I'm sure many of you would have taken a quick straw poll of all ages to find out who knows what about the Guyana-Venezuela controversy. And you would have been shocked at the response. You would have been shocked. Go to any primary school, take a straw poll. Go to any secondary school, take a straw poll. Walk down on the streets, the man in the street, take a straw poll. And you will be shocked as to how many people are aware of the Guyana-Venezuela controversy. You might be even more shocked of certain answers that you may get. The ones that start with, I don't care, I got to make a bread, I got to eat a food, kind of. Nowhere, imagine in our curriculum, when we have been talking about this from kindergarten to the grave, that this matter should be part of the curriculum. It has not been. Just like how they're resisting putting Guyanese history as part of the curriculum from kindergarten to university. And every time, now Maduro is going to be even more emboldened with his falsified 6 more years that he got. He builds a bridge over Ankoko, our half of the Ankoko, effectively, practically, and physically now seizing our half of Ankoko. And once he starts building settlements, ramping up settlements in there, what is going to be our feeble plea? And now naming governor and saying what you're holding a referendum or you're holding voting or something. what bothers me is the reaction of the government. It is one as stupid as you can find. And what has Argyle Declaration done for you? And why haven't you not mobilized CARICOM, Commonwealth, OAS, and so on? It is not sufficient to say, yes, these people have previously said that they are in support of you. That is not sufficient. So I compliment Amanda for putting out that strong, precise statement of perfect clarity and wisdom. And in such a matter that is supposed to be of national interest, can you imagine you're still calling for establishing parliamentary committee on borders? We're still calling on that. And that the foreign minister who's chairing one of those parliamentary committees that got to do with borders has never met for the entire 4 years. Oh my goodness. And this is a national matter. What is it? That tacitly there's something going on that is transactional as it relates to our sovereignty? As it relates to this government when it comes to our borders and our sovereignty, you know, it has really been as stupid as you can get. I think 2 weeks ago or last week, I heard Ali saying, reminding or assuaging the concerns of the Surinamese that they were only trying to improve health or something like that in our territory that is being claimed by Suriname. Why do we have to grovel? Why do we have to grovel where that is concerned? Why? I say, put all cards, possibilities on the table. Level with the population, because after all, it's the population, small as we are, who will have to deal with any of the fallouts from these two, Suriname and Venezuela. Level with them, put all the cards on the table, and try to come up with a defense strategy, a defense and diplomatic strategy that though small will be effective. Though small in terms of our size can be effective. But we cannot continue to be harassed in the manner in which we are harassed by Venezuela and to a lesser extent Suriname, and hope that they will go away peacefully. Once they start to eat and it tastes sweet, they will gorge there afterwards. And it's time we get some leadership, not fancy dancing and prancing. It's time we get some leadership when it comes to this. When it comes to this issue about our sovereignty. So, Carter lived his 100 years and died soon after. I think he was 100 in October or something like that. The 39th president will be remembered for many things. Most of them, I believe, in his post-presidency period, when he did a lot of humanitarian work and established things like Habitat for Humanity and so on, built a lot of houses and so on. Perhaps that was his calling as a peanut farmer. And perhaps that was his calling. I see, in terms of Guyana though, what has been Carter's contribution? Those in the government and their supporters and so on have a glorious view of his contributions as it relates to Guyana, especially as they claim returning the country to democracy. This democracy being voting at elections, free, fair voting at elections, because that seems to be the definition of democracy for them. Those now in the opposition that was in government on two occasions that, well, not he came, but the centers have been coming, but at least 1992, that is the PNC. I don't hear anything from them. I hope I didn't miss it. But the only thing I saw was, I think on Wednesday it was, that a picture was shown of Aubrey signing the book of condolence at the United States Embassy here. But I didn't hear them make any statement. As I said, if they did, I might have missed it, but I didn't hear it. You know, sometimes you wonder whether, I call them do-gooders, because for me, a lot of them come in with their bright ideas that typically comes from a mentality that is not in sync with what have now emerged from colonial state to what we call quote unquote independence, because for many of us, independence is just a word in a thesaurus. They come with their fantastic ideas and figure that they can supplant. It's always one size fits all. It's like the good old days of the International Monetary Fund, when they wanted to fix problems in the developing countries, right? They had a template, and they will come in devaluation. You got to cut the public sector. You got to liberalize the economy. You know, all these different things, right? Everything that perhaps can work in a big country where the markets are more developed. You know, the population is more liberal and educated and all these kinds of things. So they come with these one size fits all. And Pakistan is no different. They stepped in 1992. They were supposed to monitor the 1990 elections in 1990. Because people forget elections wasn't 1990, wasn't supposed to be 1992. Elections were due in 1990. And they came and they were able to convince Desmond, President Hyde at the time, to delay the election by a year so that, you know, the list could be cleaned up. But the list was a big problem then. And 1991, again, because the matters weren't fixed, so it was delayed by another year again for 1992. And among the quote-unquote victories or wins that Carter was able to wrest from the PNC was the removal of the chairman of the GCOM, who was then Sir Harold Bullers, and I think removal of some critical officers also. Stanley, I remember him. Stanley, something I can't remember was the CEO, I think, and then there was a deputy. Can't remember his name also. They were there. Counting at place of poll, no overseas voting, right? So they were able to wrest a number of things and then come up with this Carter formula of three nominated by the governing party, 3 nominated by opposition parties, and a chairman selected from names submitted by the opposition leader, so to speak. And of course, that formula was only in respect of 1992. Then I think they reverted to the old formula. And perhaps that is how Hopkinson was appointed chairman of GCOM that supervised the local government elections of 1994. And thereafter, did not sing. And then I believe with Suresh Bali, when Suresh Bali became chairman of GCOM, I think by then the constitution might have changed and it became permanent. Because after every election, the GCOM was dissolved, technically dissolved, and the new GCOM had to come in place. But I think with Sewage Valley, I'm trying to remember, with Sewage Valley, by then the constitution had changed and the GCOM had become more permanent. And that is how, for example, today, Justice Clara Singh could claim that she will go when she thinks it's time to go, right? Because it has come to that scenario where they're permanent fixtures. They're no longer temporary fixtures that go from election to election. Maybe that will have to be looked at again in the context of the constitutional reform. So you had all these things, and in 1992, without even the elections being declared by GCOM, Carter sent to use some kind of quick poll to declare the elections for the PPP. And and the reason why I bring that is because this is not something that is only done in Guyana and caused a lot of consternation. I'll just read a quick something from the Associated Press, September the 4th, 2017, in relation to elections in Kenya. I'm quoting here. The Carter Center is defending its work as a Kenyan election observer after the country's Supreme Court nullified last month's presidential election. Right? So Carter went to observe the elections in Kenya in 2017. I think the elections were in August. They certified the elections, claimed the elections were free and fair, and whatever else. But the very elections that they certified were nullified by that country's Supreme Court. I'm quoting again. Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga says international observers moved fast to sanitize fraud in the election. He noted that the Supreme Court decision to nullify the presidential election has put on trial international observers, quote, who moved fast to sanitize fraud, end of quote. He said that the role of international observers must be examined because they put stability ahead of credibility. That last one, when I read it a couple days ago, struck me in the context of what happened in the elections of 2020 in Guyana, where the observers were keen to call the elections and had egg on their face as the recount started. They were keen to call the elections in favor of the PPP, but had egg on their faces when the recount started. And it bothers me, and it continues to bother me, that the agreement signed between Jack Dio and President Granger that allowed for the recount was absorbed in the breach, and that's the best I could put it. But in many ways was dishonored. So when we hear these days about sanctity of contracts, especially in the context of the PSA, the oil contract, we wonder what happened to the sanctity of the agreement that was signed between President Granger and the then opposition leader, Barry Jagdeo. Because that agreement says that the exercise was a two-phase exercise. There was the quantitative phase, which was the counting of the votes, and the qualitative phase about the quality of the box. And while they initially started to examine the qualitative phase of the ballots, when names were sent to the chief immigration officer, and when in a small sample of names, an astonishingly high number was found to be not in Guyana, but voted, that process was abandoned, even though the counting continued. And I often sit down and ask myself, why didn't President Granger object? Because the agreement had claimed a quantitative and a qualitative aspect. Why didn't he object? Why didn't he say this agreement was made in good faith and everything else, and it had the sanction and support of GCOM, and if it weren't being carried out to the letter, as opposed to, as in the case of sanctity of agreements, then the agreement was effectively abandoned. I often ask myself, because in those heated times and so on, and cabinet wasn't meeting and so on, you know, we weren't privy. Well, certainly I wasn't privy, and I say we. I was among those who weren't privy to these developments and what were the decisions that were being made. I must say, ultimately, all decisions lie with the president. We are just his advisors, but still, we weren't. Right? Remember, this COVID time and so on. So I often wonder why. Because effectively, the agreement was never carried out. And there was that demarche on the president by all the civil society organizations, all the observers and so on, who apparently had one thing in mind: the removal of Granger's government. Come hell or high water. So I don't know. That agreement, up to this day, I keep asking myself, why didn't President Granger move to say something in relation to the abandoning of the agreement? Because it was effectively abandoned. Because they had signed for two phases: a quantitative phase and a qualitative phase. And just to show you, when our Supreme Court, when our appeal court, which is recognized in the Constitution and still is recognized in the Constitution as the final court for election matters, and they did say by 2-1 that the quality of the vote in the election must count. Well, they didn't say that, but effectively that is what they were saying. That a ballot in the box is not necessarily a ballot in the box until a valid vote, in other words, then a valid vote had to have a qualitative aspect to it. They didn't say that. I'm not saying they say that, but what I'm saying is that they recognized that there had to be some qualitative aspect of vote. And when most legal people were saying this cannot be appealed to the CCJ because the Constitution says this is the final court. In American football, you call it a Hail Mary. And a Hail Mary was thrown, and an appeal was made to the CCJ. And guess what? The Hail Mary ended up being a touchdown. It ended up being a touchdown because the CCJ says, yes, we got jurisdiction. Notwithstanding what the Constitution says, we are now your final court. And at the time, and I'm not saying this is what they said. I mean, I'm just paraphrasing in my own words what I think. is what the decision that they made was saying. That at the time your constitution was made, the appeal court was your final court. Now today we are your final court, and so notwithstanding the constitution says that we are your final court, we could hear the matter. A Hail Mary touchdown. And the CCJ says, well, no. Once the ballot in the box there, we got to count it. We got to count it. End Granger's government. End Granger government. And today, you're hearing all kinds of talk now, notwithstanding a bloated list and all these kinds of stories. Don't worry, bloated list, man. We will be able to provide a credible election. A bloated list that is even more bloated than 2020. You're hearing that we will still be able to provide a credible election. And all those observers who are going to be jumping in here, coming close to the election, and whining and dining with the paparazzis in this country. Because yes, in 2020 they came and they whined and dined, not with the government. They came and whined and dined with the opposition and the civic and several civic society members. One leader of an observer team had dined a member of the opposition. Had dinner with a member of the opposition. And still he coming here as an impartial observer. On elections day, a number of ambassadors were seen on the Essequibo coast in the company of certain people. In the company of certain people. And we know who those people are. We know who those people are. So, opposition, look out for those observers again. As in the Kenya case, I read, one of the commentators said, they don't know these people. Many of them just jump in here. They got fancy names, they got fancy titles, right? They are ex-prime ministers, ex-presidents, ex-this, ex-that, and so on. And they come in for a couple of days. They go and see the falls. They go and see the falls. They go to the gaming sites to watch the animals and so on. And they have a nice time. And they're feted and dined and so on by the paparazzi of the society. And then they write a report that bears very little relationship to what happened. And then they want to pronounce on elections. That is what the commentator was saying. When the sample of polling booths and so on that they would have visited and so forth is extremely small. And you remember that the CARICOM Observer team in writing the report talked about a very small sample. On that very small sample, they were able to come to a conclusion that elections were free and fair. We got a lot. We need to unpack a lot from the last election and let it be our North Star in these elections coming up here. Watch those observers. It's going to be worse this time around. Now we have massive amounts of money flowing in Guyana. Now there are enormous economic and investment opportunities. Watch those observers. Watch who's coming. Do background work, find out if they have any relationship with anybody in Guyana, and how will that be playing out in terms of what they are putting together. And why are the observers waiting until near election to come here? Look what much noise is being made about the credibility of the list, about biometrics, about all these different things. And what they are going to do, come in here and step in and say, oh, we're going to pull together a team of 20 or 25, and we are going to be flying into on planes that are owned by supporters of the government, and we are going to be having lunch at this lodge that is owned by a supporter of the government, and so on. And no opposition person. And so they're biased, they're skewed, they're everything else. Watch for those so-called independent observers. So I don't know what is Carter's. In fact, Carter himself got fed up again. In Kaito News of January 6, 2025, under the headline, Jimmy Carter, the Guyana disappointment. Henry Jeffrey, who was a former minister of the PPP for many, many years, he cites Carter's parting words back in 2004 when he visited Guyana. And I'm quoting Jeffrey here, who in turn was quoting Carter from his book, I think, that he wrote. He said, quote, Jagdeo is an intelligent and capable leader, but he takes full advantage of the ancient winner-take-all system in Guyana. Following my meeting with him, I was doubtful that his political party, the PPP, will commence new dialogue with the PNC, be willing to make any substantive moves to implant the national development strategy, share political authority with other parties, or permit members of parliament to be elected by their own constituencies instead of being chosen from a party list on a proportional basis. End of quote. That was Henry Jeffrey quoting Carter. Now, the only aspect of this, because this here is I think maybe we should have a symposium that dissects Carter's involvement, Carter and the Carter Center involvement in Guyana, right? Friend or foe, if you want to define it as that. And we could have a 3-hour discussion. I can't do that. What I want to focus on in these last couple of minutes that left here is this whole reference to the national development strategy. Because you hear the PPP and Jagdeo in particular referencing national development strategy. How the coalition had no plan or strategy, not forgetting that the major member of the coalition was the only party in this country to have ever produced 2 development plans, with a third that was in the making. The Sir Arthur Lewis plan that ended in 1971, the King plan that is popularly known as the Field Close and House plan of 72 to 76. And there's a third one that was in the making that would become Wilfred David, that the Wilfred David plan, but that one didn't. The PNC is the only party in this country that has ever produced long-term development plans. Not strategies, long-term development plans. And in the coalition government, we had a major strategy, not plan, that we had produced. But back to the national development strategy. So, in 1993, the Jagan government had approached the Carter Center to help formulate a national development strategy. And of course, the Carter Center agreed because they believed, they understood the nature of Guyana. Guyana was a fractured society. And they felt that if we had a national development strategy that had the buy-in, that it could have formed the basis of developing the country, right? So Jagan approached Carter Center, and they agreed to provide both financial and technical assistance to craft such a strategy. In the event, 3 years after, such a strategy was prepared and it was published in 1996. It was prepared in 1996 and it was released in January of 1997. Right? Many Guyanese, over 200 experts and others had contributed to the preparation of this strategy, right? I believe it was in 6 or 7 volumes that that were prepared, right? The original strategy, I could see it in front of my face. It had a green stripe with a yellow body middle. I think it was prepared in about 5, 6, or 7 volumes itself, right? Now, the opposition, PNC, at the time, when it was released in 1997, had objected to it being put forward as a national development strategy on the ground that it would be used by the People's Progressive Party in the upcoming elections in 97, that infamous 1997 elections, as their manifesto, right? So the PNC out front had objected to it. And this objection was made by none other than Desmond Hoyt, who at a conference that was convened by the Carter Center in Atlanta. And at that conference, you had Hoyt, you had Haslin Paris, you had Jagdio, and you had Jagon. Those were people who were at that conference. Made that among several other points he had made. Very, very many of the points he had made were very fruitful points about the strategy. So this first draft, this 7-volume or 6-volume, whichever one it was never brought to the Parliament. It was never brought to Parliament. And so there was some level of disappointment that all that work and effort by 200 plus Guyanese and so on virtually came to again, not, right? So let us be clear about also around the time. Jagdio indeed was put in charge of coordinating the strategy. So it was kind of a bit of a disappointment when a political person was in charge of it, but yet still they couldn't take it to the Parliament, or they refused to take it to the Parliament. So the Carter Center, after consulting by Jagdio himself, approached the Guyana civil society to participate in the formulation of a second draft of the National Development Strategy, right? So that 7-volume, I was there, I was in the ministry at the time, and one of the complaints was that it was too much for people to read. Right? 7 volumes, it was too much for people to read, right? But one of the other complaints, well, not complaint really, but one of the other concerns I raised, one of the concerns I heard was that it's contained recommendations that the PPP couldn't swallow or weren't about to implement. One of them was the privatization of the sugar industry. PPP weren't going to be doing that in a jiffy at all. So that strategy had died, but they use this thing about too many volumes and people not reading it, and they don't want to read it and so on. So Carter Center said, all right, listen, we can approach civil society people and we can see if we could condense it, right? And so in September 1998, a broadly representative National Civil Committee, known as the NDS Committee was formed, right? The arrangement between the Minister of Finance, the Jagdio, and this committee was that the report, once completed, will be submitted to him. It will be discussed in cabinet and laid unaltered in the National Assembly. Now, there the government as well as the opposition parties will be free to express their views on the strategy, right? So once the civil society, and this civil society group was headed by Dr. Kenneth King, who was the said person I talked about, who did the 1972-76 development plan, and who had served as the general secretary of the PNC around 1993, 94. Kenneth King was brought back to Guyana around 1990, I think was 1991, I believe, or 1990. I believe in 1990 he was brought back to Guyana to help with the implementation of the economic recovery program, by which time it had gone a significant way, because we had started that ERP around mid-1988. Okay, and he was brought back then. And then he was made General Secretary of PNC, right? Because I remember him going to one, and he was in Parliament around 92, 93. Didn't last long, he resigned soon thereafter. Right? So he headed this National NDS committee, and Mavis Ben was either his deputy or she was one lead of the 23 sectoral committees that were formed. Mavis Ben, who was PNC mayor for a long while, and I think she was the second woman to be mayor in Guyana. I think Beryl Simon was the first. And they were situated in that Morags building in Charlotte Street. Now, this strategy was completed. It was now one document. I think it was 376 pages, or I think it was 300, but it was one document now. It was one document. And like in everything else in this life, the PPP reneged on bringing the strategy to the National Assembly. It took the opposition. This is what you know. I have to say, the activism of the opposition back in those days. It took the opposition to bring the strategy to the Parliament, and this was done via a motion by Winston Murray, by a motion by Winston Murray. Now, according to the Hansard, the 5th sitting, December 2006, one of the resolved clause reads as follows, quote, that this National Assembly accepts the National Development Strategy and the measures and policies therein as an overarching strategy for pursuing the economic and social transformation of Guyana. Remember, this is the strategy that was agreed by the Minister of Finance, Barak Jagdeo, for the civil society to condense, that it will be taken to the cabinet, that it will be discussed, but that after being discussed, it will be presented in the National Assembly unaltered. Only when it is discussed in the National Assembly by the government and the opposition would it be finalized, given the discussions that will take place. And the government refused to put their own national development strategy in the Parliament. It took an opposition PNC, an activist opposition PNC at the time, in the name of Winston Murray, to introduce that NDS to the Parliament. And that was the resolve clause. Let me read it again. That this National Assembly accepts the National Development Strategy and the measures and policies therein as an overarching strategy for pursuing the economic and social transformation of Guyana. And it was laid. And it was debated in the Parliament, thanks to the PNC and Winston Murray. After extensive debate, the motion was put to the House for approval, for the motion to be approved. The motion had several reserve clauses and so on. The motion was put to the House after extensive debate. You'll be shocked to understand this now, and members, and those who are listening. Amazingly, all 33 of the government MPs voted against their own national development strategy. All 33 voted against Not for their own strategy, against their own strategy. And let me give you the names. Let me give you the name because some are still prominent. So when they talk and so on, you must know their history. Voted against their own development strategy. 33 of them voted against. Whitaker, remember he was local government minister at one time. Siraj, Rice Man, some people said, Nimit Kumar, Daniel Nandalal, Moses Nagamutu, Lumumbo, somebody named Khan, Shirley Edwards, Komal Chan, Atkinson. This is, I think I know her. She was Amerindian MP. Mohammed Orphan Ali, Shadiq, Bibi Shadiq, Indra Chandra Pal, Hari Prasad Nakto, Tashira, Ramatar, Maniram Prasad, Jennifer Webster, Barry Ramsaran, Desiree Fox, Priya Manik Chan, Manzoor Nadir, Robson Ben, Frank Anthony, Kelawan Lal, Jennifer Westford, Hari Prasad Nabat, Rodriguez Burkett, Ramsamy, Leslie Ramsamy, Bash. This is the same Bash that is at GWI. Right? I think he was either housing minister at the time or education minister, one of the two of them. Might have been housing minister. Clement Rohi and the venerable Samuel Hines. 32, not 33, 32 members voted against the venerable Samuel Hines. 21 members from the opposition side voted for the strategy that was prepared by the PPP, under the PPP, by the National Development Strategy Committee, a civil society committee. So, a civil society that you agree to, because by then, Dr. Kenneth King might have had his own issues with the PNC at the time, right? So he was a favorite of Jagdeo because Jagdeo served under him when Jagdeo was at state planning. Such a strategy could not get the approval of the government. What do you think will get approval in today's? How do you think you can even get a national committee on the board of? So when people say that this government feels, or the PPP feels that this piece of land belongs to them, and only them can rule it, we have a basis. We have a basis of saying that. They love to shout about unity and one Guyana and all these kinds of things. It's a lot of words. It's a lot of words. And it's unfortunate I keep saying that there are many out there who fall for this. They fall for it. They don't put 2 and 2 together and make it 4. They put it and make 22. And these are the ones who are suffering from the No Child Left Behind education. Many of them, check and see, look at their ages. They don't have a grounding. They don't have a family structure, a grounding in family structure. They don't have a grounding in education. They don't seek out knowledge. And worse, they don't understand the struggles of their ancestors. Even in the villages, the ancestral villages, Buxton, Golden Grove, Ants Grove, Victoria. Look at what is happening in those places that carry the struggle of our ancestors. Look at what is happening today. Whose fault is this? Whose fault is this? Is this the time for blame sharing? I say, well, there's enough blame to carry around. But I think it's time for education sharing. And more of those programs to educate our people, because they're not going to be educated by this government. And many of them are suffering from money illusion. It's a term in economics, but I will refine it. Money illusion. Flick some Granger in front of me, and my eyes start twinkle. And our forefathers, foremothers, who would have gone through all that struggle to make us where we are today, are watching on with tears at what is happening, and how their subsequent generations, what they had done to that struggle. So, Kidaki, I'll end here today. I know I've gone over a little bit of time and so on, but I wanted to make it clear that this government continues to be a transactional government. And there's deep concern that their transactions impinge on our sovereignty. There were many other strategies by this government, right? Time run out. I couldn't talk about them. But there are all kinds. There are the national competitiveness strategy. There was low carbon development strategy, right? Then there was a poverty reduction strategy. Then they come back in 2020 with a low carbon development strategy reboot. All were transactional strategies, none meant to look at the long-term development of this country. All right. So I hope the little education meant something this morning, and we will continue next week. Thank you, God.
Let the record show that you restricted yourself. I didn't.
No, in terms of attention span.
Yes, I know. But right? You know what? We still have 700 plus people listening strong, you know. So don't worry, attention span. They are paying attention. And what they miss, they will go and listen to again. So they will get it. That's the good thing with these programs. They're there as videos on demand. All right, Mr. Jordan, thank you for your time. Thank you for viewers. I am sure that your morning was well spent. You have had a masterclass here from Mr. Jordan. Range on a wide range of topics, if I can say. At 22 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour, I have to say goodbye to you. I have to say I'm putting up the Cash App, I'm putting up the Zelle and MMG and so on and so forth. And y'all decide if you want to put anything inside. I done with that long tag business. Y'all gonna work it out for yourself. Have a great day, have a great weekend. Remember, we're coming up on the 26th. We have that big people after lunch and all is back now.
Went to a dance at Florida. Me and a big fat thing named
Club Twilight presents Sunday 26th January, the big people after lunch and oldies bacchanal. Yes, at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Music by Super Cat One Man Band, Camps Audio, Disco Baby and Popular DJs. Check it out. It's the big people after lunch oldies bacchanal at Club Twilight. Sunday 26th January, it's gonna be a back in time movie.